I'm sure we've all heard people say everything happens for a reason. This phrase is said a lot, right? Especially when someone's going through a difficult time or a hard time. You hear people say this everything happens for a reason. But for the longest time, I wasn't sure how, this phrase was even relevant. And, it's not really something you want to hear when you're going through a difficult time or when someone else is going through a difficult time because it doesn't really help. But then I realized over time that you know, I was just viewing this phrase and what it meant in the wrong light. So let's talk about that today. And I think one of the reasons why I used to think that this phrase wasn't very relevant or very good before was because I used to think that this phrase, everything happens for a reason. I used to think that this phrase was really giving away power, giving away power to external situations, or people or other things that, aren't in our control. And I thought it was just a way of blaming the universe or God or some other higher power or some other situation or thing that's outside of us. But over time, I realized that this phrase, everything happens for a reason, it's not about giving away your power, And I was just viewing this in a different way to what it really is. It's not that, but it's more so just accepting because, of course, in all of our lives, there are things that we cannot control, For example, other people, what they do, what they think about us, what they say, or certain outcomes and results. We can't really control a lot of things in our lives. And that's okay, that's just how it is. That's just what being human is. And so thinking with the mindset of, everything happens for a reason, it really just means that we accept, first of all, that there aren't things that are in our control and that's fine. And letting go of that control because so many of us, literally me too, I used to just try to control everything, try to control other people's perceptions or this and that. And it's we can't really do that, and it's not really possible. It's a fight that we cannot win because you really cannot control, for example, how people perceive you or, what happens. For example, you can go and do a test or an exam or whatever, and you can do your best, right? You can study a lot and do your best and go in there and do your best. But ultimately, you can't really control your result and what you get at the end of the day. There's still a factor of of course, you can do what's in your power and what's in your control, but you can't necessarily always, and for everything, you can't control the result. And so if you just accept that, I'm going to do what's in my power and that's what I have control over, that's really what this phrase is about. So it's knowing that, of course, I am a big believer of absolutely do what's in your power and what's in your control for everything in life and for anything in life, because ultimately it is your life and what you do in it and how you act and react and behave in your daily lifestyle, everything is going to determine, how your life is. So absolutely do what's in your control. But, believing in the fact that everything happens for a reason also means that no matter what happens in your life and what the outcome and whatever the result is of, something, of a situation, you are going to try and make the best out of it. And I think this is probably the reason why I started believing in this phrase so much. And it's because once I started believing that, everything happens for a reason, what I started really doing was I started becoming unstoppable, in my mindset, in my daily life, and in the way I thought and acted basically. Because it's let's say, I do something or I'm really trying hard for something or whatever it is, and that thing doesn't work out. That thing doesn't work out in the way that I want. Of course, I'll be upset, I'll be sad, or, I'll be oh, I should have done more work or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, because my mindset is, but everything does happen for a reason. So I will look for the reason as to why this thing might have happened, why this thing might not have gone the way I wanted. And usually I will, come to the result, come to the conclusion that it didn't work out in the way I wanted because it's probably for the best. I'm probably learning from this, and I'm probably just not maybe ready for it yet, but I will get it, because it's you know, whatever happens, you know, even if it doesn't work out in our favor or hasn't yet, you know, because I believe that everything happens for a reason, it means that I know that, like, you know, this thing or this situation or whatever it is teaching me something. It's teaching me a lesson. It's teaching me something I need to know. It's giving me the knowledge that is going to help me, you know, live my life better, become a better person, and get the things that I want, you know, achieve my goals and my dreams. And so I think this is probably the biggest, like, most important point that has resulted from me believing that everything happens for a reason. And I like to believe that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is the best. Like, you know, it's happening for the best reason because it's teaching me something, it's helping me grow, it's helping me become a better person. Because honestly, if we even like look at our like lives in the past, you know, like think about, you know, a time when you really wanted something to happen, or, you know, you really wanted to become friends with someone, or you really wanted a job, or to do really well on a test, or whatever it is. You know, you really wanted something or someone or whatever it is, and it didn't work out in your favor, you know, as in you didn't get the thing you wanted or the person you wanted, you know, and it didn't happen in the way that you wanted. And if you like look back at it and you really think about it, it's probably for the best anyway, right? Because it's like sometimes in the moment we think that like we really want this thing and it's like the best, and you know, we just really need it and want it or whatever it is, but it's like sometimes not getting it is actually a lesson, you know, it's like teaching us something. Because we all just got everything that we wanted, a lot of us wouldn't change, wouldn't grow, we'd just be too comfortable with our lives, with who we are, because we're just getting everything, you know. And like I think being human, like one of the most important things that we can do that like a lot of other species can't is to learn and just grow, and like, you know, because we're so like complex, right? We're such complex beings that like, you know, we can do that, you know, and like a lot of other species can't, a lot of other organisms can't, right? You know, like for example, like if you do bad on one test or one exam, you know, and if you really use that experience not to like beat yourself down and like be negative about it and everything, like yes, you can be upset about it, but ultimately if your mindset is, you know, it happened for a reason and what I need to do is just like learn and grow and like see, you know, how I can improve for next time, then you're set basically. Because like let's say you do really bad on an exam or a test, or you know, you don't get the job you wanted, and then you take the lessons, you know, you're like, oh, I didn't study enough, or I didn't study enough for this, or whatever it is, and then for next time you take that lesson, you take that knowledge and clarity that you have, and then you implement into the next time. You know, you're learning, you're growing, you're gonna improve if you keep doing this, you know, with like a lot of things in life. That's just how it is. You know, it's really not that complicated at all if we really think about it, because most things in life are like this. If you want to improve yourself, if you want to better your life, if you want to better your relationships, you know, if you want to excel and grow in your job or at school or uni or whatever it is, a lot of it is just this: you learn from your past or previous or present experiences for the future. You know, you keep improving, learning, growing. Like it's just a cycle. You know, let's say you went through a really bad situation or something, or heartbreak or something, you know, and you're just like, but like, what could be the reason behind it? Sometimes we can't see it in the present moment, like what the reason could be as to why it happened or what it was trying to teach you, you know, what lesson you were being taught with this experience, with this really bad experience or negative experience. Sometimes we can't see it in the present moment. Sometimes we just need to give it some time, some space. And then, you know, like there's so many times when I could just, you know, something's happened in the past and, you know, I would just be really uncertain, and I would just be like, why would this happen? Like it's such a weird thing. Like I don't get what it was trying to teach me. And then like, you know, maybe a few days, weeks, months, maybe even a few years later, I will just like be sitting and like randomly, you know, like thoughts are just in your head, whatever. And then like it would just click to me that like, oh wait, but like I feel like that happened because this and this. Like it just makes sense sometimes. Like it can make sense maybe even years later, you know? I mean, depends on the time frame and everything, but like sometimes you won't understand in the moment why it happened. But then you will like much later. And like you'll be like, oh, so like these sequence of events had to happen this way so that I could become this person, or so that I could get this thing now, or so that I could learn for this new relationship or for this new friendship or experience or job, whatever it is. So even if it doesn't make sense right now, you know, specific things in your life, you're like, I don't know why this would happen, I don't know like what it was trying to teach me. Trust me, everything in life is like trying to teach you something. It's trying to help you become a better person, help you grow, help you learn, help you live the life you want. It's just that a lot of us need to like redirect our mindset, instead of from just being negative and being like, oh, like, you know, I'm just unlucky and my life just doesn't work out in the way I want, and you know, other people are just lucky, because that's not true. And I used to literally think that I was like not a lucky person. Like I used to believe it so deeply. It was just so ingrained in me. And I used to always say like, oh, like I'm just not a lucky person, you know? Other people just have it easier. That's something that a lot of people you'd hear say. You know, other people just have it easier. They just have this, or they're prettier, or they're more smart, or they're smarter, they're just more successful. But it's like, you can be all those things. You know, you can be anything you want. Why not? You know, who's stopping you? It's you most of the times. It's us. Like me being like, oh, I'm not a lucky person, and other people just have it easier. Like, really, I was just stopping myself, you know? But because I started believing that, like, you know, I had to go through my difficult experiences, my tough times, everything, I had to go through those bad friendships and ups and downs of life, like everyone does, you know? But those experiences teach you for the future. Everything I've gone through in the past, now when I like look back at it, I'm like, of course I had to go through that, you know? Of course it sucked, and of course it was so bad, and I wish I wouldn't have to go through any of that. You know, I wouldn't even wish it on like my enemies to go through what I did, you know? But it's like I had to go through those tough times and absolutely difficult, down, bad experiences. I had to go through those so that I could become the person that I am today, and I could be able to share my experiences and talk about it and give people advice and just, you know, have the wisdom and knowledge that I have, so I can move on, you know, from those things, and make sure that those mistakes don't repeat again. Make sure that I never feel that bad and those bad experiences never happen again. Yes, that reminds me, using your negative experiences and your bad experiences, you know, whether that was getting kicked out of a job, or going through a bad relationship, or bad friendship, or family experiences, or whatever it was, if you take your lessons from it, your knowledge from it, whatever, you know, that experience was trying to teach you, if you take it from that and then you just move on, if you just move on from it and make sure that it never happens again, that it never repeats again, because most people will keep going in a cycle. It's like why some people just don't find good friends, and they keep finding the same toxic friends or relationships or whatever it is. It's because they haven't actually learned. Like they haven't actually learned what that experience was trying to teach them. That's why they keep going in a loop, in a circle, and they keep ending up with the same type of people and in the same type of jobs. And like, you know, some people just keep attracting like narcissists, for example, or toxic people or abusive people or things like that, you know? It can happen in any scenario, in any case. But that happens because people haven't learned the lesson. You know, if it happens one time, you know, the first time, and we learn exactly what that experience was trying to teach us, we learn, we clock it in that moment, and you know, we make sure that never happens again because we've healed from it, we've learned from it. But the people that end up, you know, they keep repeating the same cycles and ending up in the same types of situations, it's because they haven't learned. And thank you so much for watching this video and for sticking around and dropping by. Let me know what were your thoughts on this video. You know, share any experiences that you might have, and you know, what do you think about everything happens for a reason? What do you think about this phrase? Let me know, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Mwah.